Welcome to On the Clock with Krysten Peek. I'm Krysten Peek, NBA draft analyst for Yahoo Sports. We'll be coming to you each week between the NBA draft lottery and the NBA draft itself with everything you need to know about this year's upcoming class. Today, I'm so excited because we're joined by Damien Wilkins. He's the GM and head of basketball at Overtime Elite. He played 10 years in the NBA and has a rich basketball background spanning over 20 years. Damien, thank you so much for making the time and jumping on the pod. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Before we get into it, I just have to say and give you guys your flowers. I love coming to OTE. Your setup and just your facilities are unbelievable. It's unmatched. It's no wonder that you're seeing the development come from OTE and what it's translating to the NBA and the NBA draft. So obviously we're going to touch base on that. And then I also want to talk about the 4 prospects in this year's draft with Alexandre Sarr potentially going number 1. But let's back up. Let's take a back up just in case people don't know what Overtime Elite is. And by the way, people, if you are in Atlanta and you haven't been to OTE, you have to get out for a game. It's such an experience. Even when you guys brought the experience to All-Star Weekend in Indy, I just love it from start to finish. I love working with your team. So if you are in Atlanta and you haven't been to a game, you have to get out. But for those that don't know, what is Overtime Elite? What is your guys' mission? And how do you bring players into the league?
Man, that's loaded.
Just give us the full overview.
Overtime Elite is a high school developmental league. We have 8 teams in our league. Year 1, we had 3. Year 2, we had 6. And year 3, we had 8. And we're entering year 4. And we'll likely still have 8 teams. We are an accelerated development program. We have our hub, which is in Atlanta, is our baby. And it houses 3 of our teams, City Reapers, Cold Hearts, and RWE. And then we have 5 teams outside of our league in different markets, 2 in North Carolina, 1 in New York, 1 in Arizona, and then 1 in California. And that essentially is what makes up our league. In-house, we have 33 guys, and everything that we do and give to them, all the resources, are customizable to them and their respective talent levels and educational levels, all of those things, from our academic program to our on-the-court player development to our weight room and health and performance department to our social marketing and branding department. Everything is customizable to each individual player. We have guys here ages 15 to 19, and we have obviously in a short amount of time, we have a very good, I think, amount of professional basketball alumni already. Most notably, Amen and Ausar Thompson, who went 4 and 5 respectively in the draft last year. And like you said earlier in the show, we have Alexandre Sarr, who is a projected number 1 pick that was at OTE a year ago. Also, Rob Dillingham and Izan Almansa, Tyler Smith, Bryson Warren, and Jalen Lewis are all guys that are putting themselves into the draft this year, who we have high hopes for, and they have high hopes for themselves. And we've been able to help those guys in terms of their foundation and get them going on the right path to professional basketball themselves. And we just continue to just develop and recruit and develop some more, both on and off the court. And I don't think there is any other place in the high school basketball space like this.
I want to talk about OTE and, like you said, just the developmental side of it a little later in the show. Since this is draft focused, I want to touch on 4 guys. But last year, you mentioned Amen and Ausar Thompson, and they went 4 and 5. I had a chance to spend some time with them at OTE. Their developmental minds, the way they see the game is it's unlike any other player I've ever been around, both of them. But how is it having both of them during the inception of OTE and seeing their growth over 2 years to be put in the position to be top 5 picks?
Well, we tell all of the guys that we recruit to come here and our guys here, our constant message is you get out of this what you put into it. I think our resources are endless for that development. I think we have everything that you could possibly want and need to just improve each and every day, right? And for those guys, they had a mindset coming into this thing that they were going to be pros and they were going to be top picks and they were going to be the best players here. And that was their mindset. And that mindset carried on to their work ethic. And then their work ethic just kind of spoke for itself. I think there's something to be said about guys who are that good that also listen to instruction, to a developmental plan, just to all the things that we were able to throw at them to help them get better. There's a humble nature that has to happen and that you have to have and embody to be able to just already be that good and then also say, you're right, I'm not good enough. And those guys did that. I mean, they lived in here. It was times where we had to kick them out of the building and, because it was just late or it was just like, okay, guys, like there's a game tomorrow. But they just put the work in and they knew the things that they needed to work on and get better at. And they focused on those things each and every day. And they continued to strengthen the things that they were already good at. And you saw what the end product was in terms of coming out of here. And even now I can imagine even things that I've been told where they are now in Detroit and Houston, respectively, that they are still maintaining that same work ethic and that tenacity towards improvement.
Yeah. I'm a twin myself, so I have a special spot in my heart for Amen and Ausar. But with this year, we touched a little bit on Alex Sarr, projected #1 pick. I think there's going to be a battle between him and Zachary Richeche, who played out of his mind to close out his French season. But Alex Sarr, 7'1", French prospect, spent 2 years at OTE. What did you see the most in terms of his growth and development? And how would he fit in, like with the Hawks, your neighbors there in Atlanta?
Well, yeah. I mean, when he came to us, he was just a tall, skinny, talented kid who you could see that had all the tools to be very, very special. And, all the things, again, he like Amen and Ausar, really attacked his work ethic with, aggression and tenacity and was very intentional about getting better. In particular for him, just getting better in the weight room just to help his aggressive level. But I see he has all the tools that fit today's prototypical NBA player. He's a 7'1" guy who can stretch the floor. He can shoot the ball from three. He can post up. He plays defense. He protects the rim. He has a high basketball IQ. He's just one of those guys that has it all. He's right now is a baby unicorn. And, I liken him to that Porzingis, that Wembanyama type of game. And he has that type of potential. And, Alex is a guy, man, who is also very humble in his development in that he takes constructive criticism very well. And he doesn't take it to heart. He doesn't take it personal. Anytime you tell him he needs to get better or something, he goes out and proves and that he can get better at it and that he's willing to put in the work to get better at it. Kid with a great attitude, comes from a great, amazing family. Obviously, his brother Olivier plays in the NBA and currently trying to stay and stick in the NBA as well. So he has people in his ear that are really good people and helping him through this process. In terms of the Hawks, I think, selfishly speaking, biased talking, whatever the case may be, like I do think he is, even if the Hawks didn't have the #1 pick, if it was someone else, I would still think Alex would be the best pick, just because of his ceiling, and his potential and how prototypical his skill level and skill set and frame is to today's NBA.
With Rob Dillingham, another projected lottery pick, Kentucky freshman, came off the bench, was absolutely unbelievable. He was a late arrival to OTE. Donda Academy imploded at Kanye West school, and you guys just kind of took him in under your arm. What was your first impressions of Rob as a player?
Just an unbelievable talent. I mean, just a knack for scoring the basketball. I think he was just born to score. He could score in so many ways. He can handle the ball, and his IG handle says it all, right? like he is.
What is it? Rob with the ship, shifty Rob.
Rob with the shifts, and he is very shifty. And I think he's one of those guys that is very difficult to guard. If I had to compare him to anyone in the NBA, I would probably say like a Jamal Crawford, a Lou Will type of player who can, come off the bench. I think that's what the genius thing that Calipari did was bring him off the bench so it could be like kind of his show with that second unit group of guys. And I think he can still do those things. He has the talent to do those things at the next level as well. So I'm excited to see where this draft takes him. I know Rob is going to come in and have an immediate impact because of just his ability to score and his unbelievable confidence.
What do you think's the best fit for Rob team wise? I mean, you've seen it, him being mocked to the Spurs, the Grizzlies, kind
Yeah.
of leading that secondary unit, learning from Ja. The Jazz are looking for a point guard. What do you think is his best fit?
I mean, listen, I would love to see him in Atlanta too, well, to be honest with you. Oh, but I mean, the Spurs would be great, to start your career off under the direction of Greg Popovich is something that I think people probably don't understand how important it is, right? Like he's a guy who can learn a lot in that system. I think playing along Wembanyama is going to free him up to be able to be more of who he is as well because of so much attention on Victor. But Rob, he's a plug and play guy, man. Like you just got to give Rob the basketball and tell Rob to go out there and be Rob, and he'll make it happen.
To your point, I was actually kind of shocked in the best way possible that Calipari did let him play freely within his system. And I think he flourished because of that. So kudos Calipari. And I think you're right. Like he is a plug and play guy. He's going to find ways to impact the game positively. And it'll just depend on, which team wants to look past his size and maybe just the lack of defensive versatility in guarding the backcourt and, take a shot on his offensive upside, I think.
For sure.
Moving to Tyler Smith. He's been a little bit of a late bloomer. This is 6'10" swing forward. He kind of spaces the floor well. Did he spend 2 years at OTE before? Okay, so 2 years at OTE, 1 season with the Ignite, averaged 13.7 points, shot 36% from three last season. I think the biggest thing that stands out to him is his 3-point shooting in terms of development. But what has stood out to you just in the time that you spent with him at OTE and where he is now projected as a first-round pick?
I think Tyler is like Ethan. I mean, not Ethan. Like Alex. Tyler's one of those guys who has all the tools that people are looking for in today's NBA. That long, rangy, versatile player. Like Tyler can play inside. He can play outside. Obviously, he shoots the ball at a high clip from three. He can pass. He can handle. He's a versatile guy that can just do a whole lot of everything. And someone mentioned to me the other day, and I thought about it, and it does make sense that having him next to a guy like Sabonis in Sacramento, right? Like having Alex be your 4 and him your 5, and what that can do for a lineup like that. So I think him playing alongside a dominant, big, which is not many in the league anymore, but playing alongside a guy that can help him also play the 4 and the 3 at times will be perfect. I would love to see Tyler in somewhere like Minnesota, like playing alongside those two bigs that they have, him maybe being like a small forward type. He can guard the ball. He could just do a whole lot of things. And I think, again, like Rob, he's one of those guys where you can plug in a lot of places and he'll be able to flourish. Tyler has a work ethic, has a skill, and I think if he continues to keep that up, with intentionality, I think he's gonna end up being like, we're gonna look at him as like the steal of the draft.
It's funny you mentioned the steal of the draft because I think the last guy I want to touch on before we go to a break, Izan Almansa. I mean, he's someone.
Al Horford.
He just looks like an NBA player, but
Yeah.
we're seeing him projected more in the second round. I mean, he tested okay at the combine.
Yeah.
I feel like this could be a guy a year or two from now where we're looking back and we're like, he went where? Like similar to
Yeah,
how productive we've seen Naz
yeah.
Reid with Minnesota. He went undrafted. Even Gigi Jackson this year kind of catapulting into being, a first team all rookie. And for someone, I mean, I felt like you were slept on. You went undrafted and had 10 long years in the NBA.
Yeah.
But what do you like about Ethan and just how his game projects to the next level that we haven't seen yet?
I just think I just think Ethan plays with a tremendous amount of just poise, patience, and just he doesn't play like he's young, right? Like he plays the game like he's been playing for a while. And every time I watch him play, I can't help but think of Al Horford, a guy that I played with, where he's not, just this physically huge guy, but it's just so impactful in so many ways. And he'll end up winning you a game when you need a game to be won. And he'll make the right plays. He'll make the right pass. He'll make a shot from three, and then you're like, wow, like he can do that too. Like he's a guy that's going to slowly show you everything that he can do, and it end up being super impactful and also turn into like a long, productive career. And much like Al Horford, right? Like
who's still playing, by the way.
Who's still playing. He's old as hell, still playing and still out there making plays and winning games and now has helped, a Celtics team get to the finals. Like I love Ethan in that way and feel like that he can be that type of guy.
All right, we're going to take a quick break and come back with more insights on the current and future NBA draft classes with Damien Wilkins. Welcome back to On the Clock with Krysten Peek. I'm Krysten Peek, joined by Overtime Elites, Damien Wilkins. We're talking about everything OTE. We touched base on the four main prospects in this draft. I kind of want to dive a little bit more into OTE, the NIL landscape, the future of everything. I mean, this year we saw the Ignite team fold, and Adam Silver came out and said, it has a lot to do with NIL and the opportunity that college players are getting. Where does Overtime Elite stand right now in this, post NIL landscape that we're in? And how are you guys navigating it with different options for players?
I'm sure our parent company, Overtime, when, people are coming to us and discussing NILs, like I'm glad I'm not in those rooms. Like I want to be so far removed from those conversations. It's because it's just a difficult world to navigate when you have parents and advisors. Parents are coming in there with an emotional component behind their negotiations, and then you have advisors coming in there with their agents coming in there with their own agendas as well, and then the player is sitting there too, and it's like, well, I think I'm worth this, and I want this, and this is what we have to offer. Like, it's a difficult world to navigate. And again, like I tell our guys that come in here all the time, like, hey, you're here to get better. Like, forget that. That stuff is great. I'm glad they have that. I wish they had it when I was in high school. But, at the same time, I think, we always got to keep the main thing. And that's probably what I would tell. Well, that is what I would tell all of these guys nowadays.
Are options better or worse for players than they were 12 months ago with everything you just said?
I think optionality is good. I think the issue comes when people don't truly know how to navigate those options or making poor decisions, based on the options that they have or don't have. Like for me, if I'm a guy right now in high school, I'm going to pick a college. I'm not picking the sexy college or the big college everyone wanted, all the blue schools that people talk about everyone wanted to go to. Like, if I'm not playing 25 plus minutes a night, like I want to go somewhere where I can play. The goal isn't to stay in college as long as I want to. The goal is to get there, to get somewhere else, right? And you can't do that if you're not playing. Yeah, you can sit on the bench and make a bunch of NIL money, but eventually that's going to run out. I mean, and none of it has truly been, as you know, like NBA money is what's life changing. So like that's the goal, to get to that. Like, as an adult, we know that $100,000, $200,000, like, I mean, yes, it's good, but once a life starts adulting,
Yes.
it ain't a whole lot.
No.
so
It goes real
so
quick.
it goes real quick. So it's like, the goal is to try to get the life-changing money, right? And in order to get that, you got to get on the court and play. And in order to get on the court and play, you got to pick the right situation for you where you're going to get the most minutes and the most out of a school that's going to help you continue to grow and get better, at an accelerated rate, much like OTE.
Yes. I mean, I just have to say, out of any other league or destination in the NIL space, I really think OTE has done the best job adjusting with the climate. Is the future for OTE more of what we're seeing this year and essentially a springboard to either top colleges or other programs overseas, leagues overseas leading up to the draft? Or do you envision more of a timeline of what Amen and Ausar did, staying start to finish at OTE throughout the entire process?
It's hard to tell, because the landscape's always changing. We've changed models twice already, and we've only had 3 seasons, right? So it's like we're changing with the times, and like you said, I think we do a great job of adapting to the whatever the current climate is. I think what we do have and that no one else can offer is, again, the level of development that we have here and the attention that we pay to it, the effort that we put behind it, and all of those things. Like it's unmatched, right? So yeah, in a perfect world for us, we would love for the NBA to drop that age thing again and go back to guys being able to go out of high school, because that would be great, right? But unfortunately, the collective bargaining agreement says that can't happen or even be thought about for another 6 years, 5 years. So we have to wait on that. But there's still routes that people can take, right? You can come here and be a post-grad, right? And, if you're 19 and 1 year removed from high school, all of those things, we've had that. And I think we have, the best of those options. Some guys would like to go overseas and play and take that option as opposed to going to college. You can still go to college out of here. I think coming to OTE we give you literally every option that you can think of. Like you're able to do everything. But for a lot of guys, overseas isn't an option for them because that's not for everyone. That lifestyle is difficult, and it's long travel. You're far away from home, and when there's a 12-hour time difference from here to there or wherever that place may be, it's hard to talk to friends and family. I've been there. I've done it. So I know what those challenges are like. And that's why, again, I say of the options that you have, I think OTE is the best one for exposure and everything.
I remember I talked to Alex Sarr. I went over to see him in Australia. And at this point, he was solidified as a top 5 pick. And I said, Alex, are you going to shut it down? And he looked at me like I was insane. Like, why would I travel 12,000 miles away to shut it down early? No, I'm going to play all the way through. I'm going to develop. I'm going to get the best as I can out of 5-on-5 competition. So to your point, overseas is not for everyone. But when you're someone like Alex Sarr, I mean, you have that mindset. You're going to get the best out of every situation.
For sure.
I want to go back to the draft. I think I already know where you're going to go with this, but after the end of every episode, we have a segment called Make the Pick. And since this isn't a Victor Wembanyama draft, this isn't next year with Cooper Flagg coming up, the year after with AJ DeBonsa, so there's no clear-cut number 1. I think I know what direction you're going to go, but you, Damien Wilkins, are advising the Atlanta Hawks, and you're on the clock. Who are you picking first with the number 1 pick for Atlanta?
I'm picking Alex Sarr. I'm picking Alex Sarr with the number 1 pick. I'm not even thinking about any other pick. Now, I may look at my draft board and be like, man, I hope that guy is still there if we have another pick, but I'm picking Alex Sarr. I just don't see another pick there. Cause like you said, a lot of people say that there's not a clear-cut number 1 picks, right? But what I think is in this draft that people are missing are guys like P.J. Washingtons, are guys like Derek Whites of the world, or guys like the Drew Holidays of the world. Those guys that actually are really important to winning, right? Like, yeah, you have your stars and they're going to be stars and do what they have to do. But all stars on championship teams, have you seen, have championships are won by the best supporting cast. So I think you have some of the best supporting cast people in this draft that you can put around stars and help win games, help win championships, and help a team be successful for years to come. And I think that's what this draft has that a lot of people just aren't talking about enough because we get so caught up in wanting the star power. And from that star power, as you know, right, like out of 450 guys in the NBA right now, there's only about 8, 9 stars. Like everybody else is a role player. Like, quite frankly, I mean, some of the best role players in the league are Kristaps Porzingis and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. Like, those guys are role players. Regardless of what you want to say about them, they're still role players. They're not the stars on the team. So it's like those guys are in this draft right now. And are you gonna just say, no, I want the star? Or because everyone can't have that, right? You need a strong supporting cast to win games. Jaden McDaniels, as good as he played in the playoffs, he's still a role player. And he played his role as well as anyone has played his role and helped Minnesota have the success that they had. So, Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year, he's a role player, right? Like, you can find those type of guys in this draft, and I think it's something that's unfortunately not being talked about enough.
I know. Well, I love that Sam Presti has been the one that has come out to say, we're all saying this is a weak draft, and he, the one that has successfully rebuilt a playoff team in 3 years, says, I love this draft. There's guys out there. We got to go find them. To your point,
Yeah.
like whoever finds that player is going to earn their paycheck this year because there is no easy answer at this draft. I don't think anywhere in the draft from 1 to 58. So Damien, this has been so fun. I really appreciate your insight and your time. But that is it for us today. Thank you to Damien for sharing all his insights. And you can follow him on Twitter at dwilkins3000. Follow me on Twitter too at Krysten Peek. Thanks to Brett and Joe behind the scenes to make everything happen, and Whitney Bell from OTE for facilitating this. Jake Fisher and Dan Devine will be back Friday morning on this feed with a new episode of No Cap Room after Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Until next week, we are out. Thanks for listening.